several times and even now remains very uncertain, but we are taking action to mitigate harm and ensure the safety of our citizens and those that are traveling through our state right now. This hurricane has shattered all-time records when you think about the wind speeds of 185 miles an hour yesterday afternoon, and it's certainly one of the most powerful we've ever seen in the Atlantic. This afternoon, it has been downgraded to a Category 4 hurricane, but that's still 145 mile an hour wind. Once it reaches our coast, it's expected to remain very powerful with winds of 40 to 60 miles an hour and perhaps more. A dangerous storm surge of 3 to 6 feet along the immediate coast and heavy rainfall in the neighborhood of 4 to 6 inches, possibly more, which will cause flash flooding. And we saw the water levels down there really 3 hours before the tide was high, was already very, very high. So you can see how we're in a little bit of a rough spot from flooding right now just because of the moon phase and the high tides that we are having in many coastal communities. And based on the recommendations of federal, state, and local partners last Thursday, I issued an executive order, as you know, declaring a state of emergency in 12 coastal counties for Hurricane Dorian preparation, response, and recovery. And this afternoon, Camden and Glenn County were placed under hurricane watch and storm surge watch. So we're on the lookout for that for the entire coast. Hurricane watch means the hurricane conditions within the next 48 hours. To ensure an uninterrupted supply of petroleum products, emergency supplies, and food, I also have temporarily waived specific weight, height, and length restrictions for vehicles traveling through Georgia for disaster response. I've also suspended regulations which limit the hours of commercial vehicle drivers. I believe that these measures will greatly assist with ongoing storm prep and disaster response efforts, but we still have much work to do. We have remained in close contact with the White House and President Trump, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster, and also North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper, as well as many other agencies at all levels of government. We are committed to the safety of our people and our citizens, and as a result, yesterday evening I issued an executive order requiring the mandatory evacuation of individuals east of I-95 in 6 counties: Bryan, Chatham, Camden, Glenn, Liberty, and McIntosh, which started at noon today. GEMA estimates that this mandatory evacuation order applies to roughly 400,000 people. To aid in the traffic flow for this evacuation, GEMA and the Georgia Department of Transportation will also start westerly contraflow starting at 8 a.m. tomorrow. All I-16 lanes will allow only westbound traffic from Savannah to US 441 in Dublin. In addition, the State Operations Center is working with the Red Cross to open shelters for evacuees in McDuffie, Lawrence, Bibb, Coffee, and Ware counties as of today. Information on shelter locations and opening times, in addition to available hotel accommodations, can be found at gema.ga.gov. Through daily briefings, GEMA and state partners have been in ongoing communications with local county emergency management agencies and FEMA officials. They have deployed field staff to all coastal counties, and we put resources on standby for response and recovery. These efforts include having law enforcement and transportation agencies on alert for evacuation and post-storm response, stockpiling fuel for first responders and emergency power operations, as well as getting engineers on deck to test or repair our infrastructure. Even with all this preparation, we still cannot stress enough that Hurricane Dorian remains a significant threat to our state. We urge all residents to stay vigilant. At noon, the mandatory evacuation was in effect for all those east of I-95 in the 6 counties I previously mentioned. We are asking everyone to please heed those warnings and evacuate if at all possible. Given the risk of strong winds and potential flooding in these areas, if coastal residents decide not to evacuate, and I want to be very clear, they will be on their own if first responders are unable to reach them. It's not worth it. If you have a family member or friends in the area, please reach out to them and consider opening up your home so we can get through this hurricane together. In the coming days, we will monitor all ongoing evacuation efforts here in Georgia, but also in Florida and South Carolina. Obviously, we're doing what we can to avoid the gridlock on our traffic infrastructure networks and move people to safer areas. We understand that we're dealing with a lot of logistics in Georgia because we have people from South Carolina coming into our state to travel on the I-16, and we have people coming up from Florida. So it's creating a little bit of a double-edged sword for us. But we have methodically planned this out, and I think that certainly having the contraflow in the morning will help with this. We've also got teams ready to tackle debris removal, including chainsaw crews near the coast provided by the Department of Natural Resources. And I've spoken with Commissioner Mark Williams earlier today, and he assures me that they are ready. He also let me know that our state parks are waiving parking and pet fees for all evacuees. People can dry camp for free, and pets do include equine or horses. Now, before I turn it over, I want to again take an opportunity to thank everyone who's working hard to get a storm ready. I certainly appreciate the outreach that we've received from the White House and President Trump, as well as his administration. He has personally assured me that he stands ready to assist Georgia should we need it. Late yesterday evening, we requested a federal emergency declaration ahead of Dorian's landfall to fully leverage our federal resources, including critical assistance for water, food, and medical supplies, shelter support, debris removal, and public health services in the aftermath of the storm. I'm very grateful for the federal, state, and local agencies, law enforcement, our military, including the Georgia National Guard, the many volunteers on the ground, and private sector companies, as well as nonprofits and countless others who have literally been working around the clock to get ready to withstand this huge storm. Thank you for what you do. We appreciate it. And with that, I want to turn it over to Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan to make a few remarks, and then he'll give it to GEMA Director Homer Bryson. Jeff.
Thank you, Governor Kemp. I appreciate you and your administration's leadership on this issue as we move forward. I also want to let everyone know that I've talked to all the senators in the affected districts down on the coastline, and they continue to communicate to me that the evacuation plan is continuing to be executed. We continue to have an open line of communication. Once again, the governor's staff has just been such a great resource for so many people across the state. The agencies and departments are doing an outstanding job of really being a collaborative effort as we move forward. I've been in touch with the Lieutenant Governor of Florida, Jeanette Nunez, and we've talked about opportunities to keep an open line of communication, as obviously both the governors continue to have increased workloads as the storm continues to nearby. So it's continued to be very, very nervous, but also very confident in the plan that's been put in place, and very confident in watching Georgians react to the evacuation plan. I'd like to bring Homer Bryson up here, GEMA Director, to give us an update.
Thank you. The governor gave you a very comprehensive overview of what we're doing as a state to support our local citizens and local governments along the coast. I just want to thank the governor for being very proactive in his approach to this and being very hands-on and involved with it. He issued a state of emergency early on, which allowed the state to bring resources to bear so that we can make sure that we have people in place and materials in place to support our local governments when requested and needed. It also allowed us to really open up a line of communications with our local communities multiple times a day. So we're ensuring that we understand what their concerns and what their needs are, and we're working together to address those. Again, he was aggressive with asking for the federal declaration. We've already received that. What that does for us as a state and for our local communities is that it frees up FEMA to provide resources for emergency protective services, which is a big benefit to us as a state and to our citizens. And with that, I'd like to bring up Attorney General Chris Carr.
Thanks, Director Bryson. Governor, thank you so much for all that you and your administration are doing. As part of the governor's executive order, price gouging laws are in effect in the state right now, and we will aggressively protect not only Georgians but our guests. We do not want those that are having to escape to protect themselves and their families to be victimized while in the state of Georgia. A reminder to all businesses, make sure that you understand what the executive order says. Each violation of that law can result in a $2,000 to $15,000 fine. And we will, as I said, aggressively protect those that are in our state. In addition, now is the time that we oftentimes will see scams for those that may have to rebuild, debris removal and or rebuilding of homes. Please know who you're working with. Please get all estimates and contracts in writing, and please don't give all of the money up front. Make sure that you know who you are dealing with in particular. And also, we see charity scams. Now is the time we need to be standing up and protecting each other, not taking advantage of each other. And we will see scams, not only those potentially in the Bahamas, but those in the state of Georgia as well. And we will aggressively go after those who are taking advantage of those most vulnerable. So thank you again, Governor. Appreciate the opportunity to speak.
All right, I'd now like to bring up Insurance Commissioner John King for some brief remarks. General.
Good afternoon. We are currently working very hard with Governor Kemp and the rest of the Team Georgia to make sure that we are set for success, not only to protect our citizens in the coast and throughout the other affected areas, but also getting ready for the recovery phase of this operation. And so working with industry to be getting ready as soon as Homer Bryson and the team clears the routes to get us back into the areas, to go and help citizens in getting their claims, working with citizens. The key today is to make sure that people are prepared for that recovery phase, to make sure they inventory all their valuables, make sure to take photographs, take care of the key documents that they'll need to make sure that they get, obviously, the insurance claims process. So we stand ready, and we're waiting for the storm with a great deal of trepidation, but we stand ready to deal with this. Governor Kemp?
All right, we'll open it up for questions. If anybody's got any.
You talked about the fact that people who stay will be left, sort of to their own devices. Can you underscore just how important it is you think everybody gets out?
Well, I know, and when I was on the coast, I heard this. I mean, our whole coastal area, and especially those in South and Southwest Georgia, I mean, they're hurricane weary for sure. I think the good news about what we've been through as a state over the last, 3 or 4 years, our team has great experience to be prepared for these things. We've certainly learned a lot through the years, and we got experienced people, so I'm letting them do their job, and they know how to do it. But I know our people are tired of evacuating. I know they're frustrated. It scares me that this storm has moved so slow that people think they have more time than they do. The reason that it's been upgraded to a hurricane watch and a storm surge watch is because they think something's going to happen within 48 hours. The cone is still touching the Georgia coast. And, what I learned on the briefing yesterday with the president and the other governors and FEMA and the national weather people was, look, anywhere in that cone, the eye of that storm can end up or can be, which still makes us very vulnerable. And especially for those on our barrier islands, if we have heavy flooding, which I believe that we will, if we get the kind of rainfall that everybody's saying we will, it's going to be very hard getting on and off that island in any kind of vehicle. And if people have a medical emergency or an issue with structures and get trapped, it's going to be very hard for us to get to them. So that's why we think people need to take the advice of evacuating. Get your belongings together and start moving as soon as you can. And I think we've spread that out a good bit, I think, and the contraflow will help tomorrow. So hopefully that will be very orderly. We got to see the traffic a couple of times while we were down there today. I've been getting reports from the State Patrol as well, and everything seems to be moving very well at this time.
Governor, what about those who are physically unable to evacuate on their own?
I'm going to let Homer speak. Yeah, I'll let Homer speak to that because he's got that answer.
As I said, we've been working with the counties for several days now, and early on, we identified that to allow them to sort of take the lead with that on how we move those folks out. Timing is unique to each county, so they need to be the driver of that and us there to support them. So our Department of Public Health has been working hand in hand with those. We've identified patients that need to be moved. We've spun up state contracts to provide busing, ambulances, and other support. We've identified areas that these individuals can be taken to. So we're well into that process, and I actually received a report back about 2 hours ago that it was working smoothly at this point.
I will just add, yesterday when I was at the SOC, the public health officials were some of the busiest folks in that room because they were already moving and preparing to get folks moved. So big tip of the hat to them. All right.
For our Hispanic community, I would like to know if somebody can talk to me a little bit in Spanish and tell me what is the situation at the Georgia coast.
General?
El mensaje es muy claro, que tenemos que estar listos porque esta tormenta es de una cantidad muy grande. La categoría es 4 a 5 ahorita. Y estamos tratando de darles las noticias y el mensaje a la comunidad que vive en la costa, que se necesita mover de la costa en este momento porque ahorita tenemos tiempo. Mañana vamos a cambiar los carriles de la carretera 16 a un sentido, al oeste, para que la gente se pueda moverse de la costa. Y estamos tratando de evacuar toda la gente que vive al este de la carretera 95. Y necesitamos que toda la gente ponga mucha atención a este mensaje porque es importantísimo. Sus vidas depende en que pongan atención en lo que está pasando. Tenemos todas las agencias del Estado aquí que están preparadas, que estamos trabajando con el Servicio Militar, con la Guardia Nacional y también con todas las agencias, que estamos completamente preparados y vigilando esta tormenta que viene en una cantidad grandísima.
¿Hay alguna advertencia para las personas que no quieran salir de sus casas?
El gobernador Kemp ha sido muy claro que si ellos toman la decisión de quedarse en sus casas, va a ser muy difícil poder rescatarlas, porque si no hay manera en que las personas de rescate, los policías o los bomberos puedan atenderlos, van a tener que sobrevivir la tormenta antes de que podamos traerles gente. Por eso es importantísimo ahorita que tenemos el tiempo de que hagan esta decisión y que hagan una decisión que sea válida con el peligro que tenemos.
Por último, ¿cuáles son las acciones que se están tomando en la costa? ¿Se han desplazado agentes militares o qué es lo que se tiene en la costa?
Ahorita estamos preparados con las agencias locales, con las agencias estatales, estamos preparadas. Las agencias militares están esperando órdenes de que cuando las autoridades de los condados necesitan ayuda, ahí aquí estamos para soportarles. Pero las personas locales son últimamente los que son encargados de sus zonas.
All right. Anybody else? All right. Thank you, everybody.